Well, many years ago I was brought up with my uncle and we used to survive off the rocks. And I think that was the beginning of my fishing life on Norfolk. Plus that my grandfather and they were whalers, so we all lovers of the sea.
What got me interested in fishing, I guess Norfolk Island being the location that it is.
We got a new echo sounder and we thought we were just going to do a bit of modification on the boat, and then we decided it was such a good day that we'd just take it out and try it out behind Phillip Island. The boat was more or less checked as we'd been working on it, and the weather was purely fine. There was no indication of a storm or anything like that. It was just like a good summer's afternoon on the 19th of January.
Pete decided that it'd be good to test it in the sea. So quick trip out to South Rock, and that's where it all began. So I guess the answer to that is I didn't wake up knowing that I was actually even going to go fishing. First reaction when the engine wouldn't start was South Rock was sucking, and we were pretty close to South Rock. So, and then looking over our shoulder out to the horizon, there was this deep looking depression that was a fair way off. It's on the horizon. So from there, it was, what are we going to do now?
Well, it's a thing you sort of never expected, and it felt like a short somewhere, but then again, at that period of time, we didn't know where it was until it flattened the battery, and from then on it was just no go, because the weather had closed in, and it was that dark within half an hour. That was about 5:30 to 6 o'clock. You couldn't see a thing. All we heard is one boat going past, would be, I suppose, about 500 or 600 yards or so more, but it was that dark you couldn't even see them. All you can hear them is going past us, and from then on it was just prepare for the worst. And
from there it was on dusk, so we just got our stuff together knowing that we'd have limited lighting. Flares, we attached one flare to a fishing rod to get a bit more height. And the other flare was a rocket anyhow. Both of those got fired in due course, just on just when the first darkness had hit.
from years' experience that yachtmen told me that if you ever get caught in following seas or something like that, always use a big tyre, a tractor tyre, you see, and that sort of stuck. He said, you've got to have weight to keep control here. And that sort of had a flashback to me. The drum would have been too light by itself. So that's why I put the anchor and the chain into the bucket.
By then we were in quite big swells. So as darkness came and we had no light, really all you could hear was the big swells hitting the boat, but luckily for the sea anchor we were getting dragged down backwards, so you could actually see the sea anchor coming down the wave behind you.
It was cold, it was wet, it was windy, it had everything a storm had to give. And as I said before, I got the weather report and she peaked at 63 knots. which is gale force winds, so even the Queen Mary couldn't have picked us up.
First light on the day 3, the engine fired up, and that was Pedro's doing. I'd had, I don't know how many attempts. You know, pull starting a V4 with a piece of rope, a piece of parachute cord and a stick is not an easy task. Pedro said, "You drive." So away we went, and realising after about 20 minutes that doing this was not going to get us home. So that's when I looked at Pete and said, you know, we're going to have to crank it up, and he agreed, so away we went. So really we're just hitting the crest, cross the wave and meet the next one, and that happened all the way back. I think that's the only way we were going to get back. Otherwise we'd be out of fuel halfway back, I'm sure. We ran out of fuel about a mile off Point Vincent, just close down to Bay there, and the boat just wound down to a halt, and I looked over at Pete thinking, 1 mile off, you know, from coming out there, we'll end up back out there, and that's not good. Pete reached down and grabbed the fuel tank again, as he did showing it off to the Orion, and the outlet was in the corner of the tank. And I just looked at him and turned the key, and it just started, first hit, and away we went, knowing there's not much fuel. And we just came around the corner, and I looked at him and he looked at me and gave me a nod, you know. In we go into Anson.